Hello, everyone. Okay, so I just wanted to do a video about my last blog post, which was 8 tips on getting started as a photographer. So I know photography is one of those things that a lot of people think is super easy to get into. And they're like, oh, there's such a low barrier to entry. All you need is a camera. Anyone can do it. And so many people are popping up doing it. It's just the easiest thing ever. And if you are person who is starting in it and trying to get going, you know that it is not as easy as just having a camera. There's so much that goes into this. So I wanted to talk about just 8 easy tips for getting started. So number one would be to name your business. And what I mean by this is you can decide to either go with your name for your business, like I do, it's Caitlin Swanson Photography, or you can choose a different name. So you can have kind of a studio name that makes you kind of like boutique-ish. Like there's a local photographer who her photography studio is Brass Bird, so she goes by Brass Bird Photography. So just decide if that's what you want to do or if you want to stick with your name. There's no right or wrong answer to that. It is completely personal preference. Once you do that, you can get your website going. So if you don't already have a website, I really encourage you to do this. They are so easy to make now. There's really no excuse for you not to have one. So just pick your platform and go with it. And if you end up hating it, you can always change later. It's really not a big deal. There are so many different ways to get started. I know like Wix is fairly new, or at least new to me, and Weebly. WordPress, which has been around for a really long time, and a lot of people love and use WordPress. I used to use WordPress. I don't anymore just because I don't have the patience for it. There's just so many things that it can do, and that's really, really amazing if you need it to do all these crazy things, but I didn't. So I use Squarespace, which is not free. You can do a free version of Squarespace, but you will have whatever your name is .squarespace.com as your URL, which is fine if that's what you want to do. It's not what I do right now. So Squarespace is super, super, super easy to use and set up, which is why I use it. So if you want to check that out, that would be great. Next would be to claim your social media handles. So you probably already have a Facebook. If you decide that you want to set up a Facebook page for your photography business, now would be a great time to do that. Also, if you decide you want to use Instagram, claim that handle if you haven't already. Twitter, Snapchat, Periscope, whatever the other ones are. I'm sure there are more. I only use Facebook and Instagram because those are where I feel more comfortable. I haven't been on Twitter in many, many years, but I know a lot of people love it and still use it. So just do what feels right to you. There's really no wrong way to go about doing this. Just pick what you feel most comfortable with. I would say don't try doing all of them. Pick 2 or 3 that you really love and just focus on those. And once you get that down, if you want to branch out and try some more, awesome, go for it. But just don't try to do it all like starting out because you will get so overwhelmed. Sorry, it just got really bright. The next thing, tip number 8 would be offer some free shoots just to get going and to kind of find your style and get comfortable. It's a lot easier to find yourself as a photographer when you don't have the pressure of someone paying you, because sometimes when someone pays you, you feel like you have to put out a certain type of image that maybe you wouldn't if they weren't paying you, and you could just kind of mess around and do what you want. So what I like to do is at least once a year, I offer like up to 10 free shoots, and I don't have a problem with that. There's a lot of photographers that will say, you know, you should never work for free, and you should always charge people because if you don't, they won't value what you do. And there's a lot of merit to that thought process, and I'm not saying that that's 100% wrong, but I have chosen to go about photography in a way that feels right to me, and so I'm okay with doing free shoots. Last year I offered 10 free sessions, and I think I ended up doing 15, and it was great. I loved it. I loved every one of them. I became a better photographer because of it. And so that's just my thought on that. If you don't feel like you want to do free shoots, don't do free shoots. Tip number 5 would be to set your prices. So we just talked about doing stuff for free, and now we're going to talk about charging people. But we're not charging people just a number we pull out of the air. You need to figure out what you need photography to do for you. Is this just a hobby and a way for you to make like a few extra dollars on the side? Cool. Like, your pricing structure will be totally different than if you need this to pay all of your bills someday. If you were trying to make this a full-time job, that requires a very different kind of pricing structure. And I will go over that more on another video on another day, because that is just like so much information. Tip number 6 would be to meet other photographers. This is really important, like more than you know. I really hadn't met any other photographers. I mean, I'd met a few here and there, but it was very sporadic and not super intentional. So I'm getting better about being really intentional about meeting other photographers, because you really just need that. You need those people who understand like what you're going through and what you're trying to do, and you know how it can be really hard to interact with people on your shoots, or the struggles of editing, or trying to figure out SEO and your blog and your social media and what you should do. It is so helpful to have people who understand what you're going through, and not just people who you know online. And meeting people online is amazing, and I think you should do that too, but you should also have people that you can meet up with face to face and really sit down and have those hard conversations and really talk about what's going on. That will be so important. Tip number 8 is to become a second shooter. So this kind of goes hand in hand with meeting other photographers, because if you don't ever meet any other photographers, you can't ever be a second shooter, because what a second shooter is basically an assistant to the primary or hired photographer. And this generally is something reserved for weddings. I don't see many people hiring a second shooter for like portraits or engagements or whatever, maybe commercial work, but mainly for weddings. So what you would be doing is whatever the first photographer needs. And you can get these jobs by knowing other photographers. It kind of makes sense. So I got my first second shooting jobs by interning for a couple of photographers who shared a studio space. And so I got to second shoot for both of them, which was really awesome. And then later on, they passed on my name to another photographer, and I second shot for another photographer who interned for someone else. And that's kind of how I got all of my second shooting jobs, which is really great. So get out there and meet people. I would say don't just straight up ask people if you can second shoot for them. Kind of that becomes very much a what can you do for me? But what you want to do is just be there to help other people in whatever way you can. And so it's what can you as a photographer do for another photographer, not what can they do for you. So, just kind of be careful with that. And then my last tip to getting started as a photographer is to start taking clients. So once you've named your business, you have your website, you have your social media handles, you've done some free shoots, you've set your prices, you've met other photographers, you've maybe second shot some, start taking clients. There is no reason that you shouldn't now. You have everything in place to get you started. So just get out there and do it, and start killing some shoots for people, and then, take care of them, and they'll pass your name on, and it'll get out there, and before you know it, you'll have more work than you know what to do with. So those are my 8 tips for getting started as a photographer. If you would like to read that blog post, I go into a little bit of detail. You can go to CaitlinSwansonPhotography.com/blog-2. That -2 is really important. If you just go blog, it will bring you to a completely different page, and you'll be like, what are you talking about? It's not here. So CaitlinSwansonPhotography.com/blog-2. All right, I will see you guys next time.